Police officers of Reddit. Who's the smartest criminal you've ever encountered? Story 1. I worked with a guy who had a lengthy criminal record and had developed a system for getting released if he ever got caught. He would act insane when the police were in pursuit, and even had his girlfriend play along, telling the police that he was off his medication. The police would arrest him and send him to a mental ward with instructions to release him to the police once he was cleared. However, once in the mental ward, he would cause a distraction and make his way to the file cabinet containing his release papers. He would then proceed to eat the papers, leaving no instructions for the ward to release him to the police. As a result, he would be released to the general public. He pulled this stunt off about 10 times before police officers caught on, and it forced the state to change their procedures for detaining mentally unstable suspects. Wow, this guy was definitely a little insane, because these plans he made and the things he did surely can't be done by a normal person, right? Story 2. I heard about a person who pulled a shoplifting scam on a large, popular, and well-known U.S. retail store. They walked in with some cheap nylon product to get one of those "I walked in with this" stickers that the store used to put on returning merchandise. The sticker easily peeled off the product undamaged. They walked to the electronics department, grabbed an expensive box off the shelf, and went to customer service. They placed the sticker on the big box and asked if they could return the item without a receipt. Unfortunately, no, not without the original receipt, said the customer service representative. Disappointed, they walk out. The customer service representative even gave the doorman the thumbs up, having just interacted with the customer. This took place before widespread inventory controls and cameras being everywhere. Story 3. Most of them are really stupid, but this guy isn't a criminal mastermind. He wanted to rob a jeweler on our city's main street, so he found out that the flat next to the jeweler's was empty and hid there. For 2 weeks, he triggered the alarm on purpose several times a night, causing a massive headache for the police and the business. We turned up to see nothing there and nothing on the cameras, so we thought it was just a fluke. The jewelers then turned off the alarm system and said they'd wait until the morning to get a new one installed or have the current one rewired because something wasn't right. As soon as he heard that and the police were leaving, he tore down the wall. He had already been working on this apparently, and robbed the place, taking his sweet time. He escaped without anyone noticing anything for hours until the jewelers came back in the morning. But his plan failed, which had a serial number on it. So, not that smart after all. Good effort though. Looks like this guy was trying to dig his way to the diamond mines, but ended up just digging himself a hole in jail. Story 4. One guy would print barcodes, bring them into Home Depot, and stick them on merchandise in the $100 range. When scanned, the items came up around the $10 range. Putting random barcodes on things isn't illegal, and it's very hard to notice. The second guy would come in an hour later and buy the underpriced stuff, maintaining complete plausible deniability. They would then sell the merchandise on eBay. The only reason they got caught is because the guy with the barcode printer or software cut the second guy out of the operation. The second guy then stole a bunch of barcodes, put them on merchandise, and paid for it immediately afterwards. He then proceeded to rat on the first guy and spilled the beans that they had been doing this on a weekly basis for over 4 years. Because they could only pin the one case on him, the burglary charge was dropped down to petty theft, and he walked away with a few days in county jail and a small fine. The first guy probably took Home Depot for tens of thousands of dollars over the years. Story 5. A friend of my brother moved to Israel, where for a period of time it was acceptable to drive with an American driver's license. He was pulled over for speeding, and when asked for his license, he gave the officer his Costco card. Costco is a membership-based retail warehouse in the U.S. and a few other countries. The exchange apparently went something like this. Officer: Costco? What is Costco? Friend: It's the state I'm from. Officer: That sounds made up. Friend: There are lots of states you probably haven't heard of. Have you heard of Arkansas? How about Idaho? Officer: I guess not. Friend: Well, I'm from the small state of Costco. The officer didn't have a response and wound up writing the ticket to someone with a Costco driver's license. My brother's friend framed the ticket and still has it hanging on his wall. Looks like this guy's membership at Costco has finally paid off in the form of a speeding ticket. But at least he's got a cool story and a unique piece of decor to show for it. Story 6. A guy I went to high school with kept selling a gold necklace under a fake ID to jewelry stores. He would then flash a real-looking airsoft gun and demand the necklace back once he had the cash in his hand from the sale. This worked about twice, but the third guy knew what the deal was when someone tried to sell this specific necklace. The shop owner went in the back to reference an appraisal book and called the police. The funny part was that he got about a year for the robberies, but using the fake gun added 5 years to his sentence. Story 7. Not being a police officer, but I have an interesting story from my experience in insurance and debt collecting. There was a man who was already in a significant amount of debt. He filed multiple police reports for identity theft, which led him to being protected from financial checkups, a temporary measure given to repeated victims of identity theft. At the same time, he reported fake income to the IRS for several years, ranging from $40 million to $60 million, depending on the year. As a result, when he applied for credit cards and loans, they were unable to check his financial credit due to the identity theft protection, but they did check his tax returns, which showed a massive income. He was able to obtain loans and credit cards, emptied them out, and then left the country. Story 8. The story goes like this. One morning, a homeowner walked out of his house to find that his car was missing. He promptly reported the theft to the police. A few days later, his car was back in front of his house, with a note inside. The note was an apology from the thief, who had been in dire need of transportation and had borrowed the first car he found with the keys inside. The writer of the note had noticed the sticker on the car for the local sports team and, in an effort to make amends, left 4 tickets to an upcoming game in the glove box for the homeowner and his family. However, when the homeowner and his family returned home after the game, they found that their house had been ransacked and all items of value were gone. Looks like the thief took the home field advantage a little too literally. At least they left tickets to the game. I guess that's something. But seriously, lock your doors, folks. You never know who might be watching. Story 9. The story goes like this. A guy, let's call him Dave, I worked with told this story. He was working at a Mercedes dealership when a well-dressed gentleman came in and asked if he could test drive a specific car parked out in front. It was a busy day, and usually they allowed people to test drive by themselves after some form of deposit or identification. Dave gave the keys to the man, who went on the test drive and returned a reasonable amount of time later. He handed the key back and received his deposit or identification. This was around closing time, possibly on a Friday. Everything seemed to be in order. Fast forward to the next business day, Dave's boss walked in and realized that one of the Mercedes out front was gone. Dave had to explain that the car had been returned and that they had the key. It turned out that the criminal had not test-driven the car, but had instead driven somewhere to create a replica of the key and gave that replica back to the desk. He kept the real key. That smart criminal. Story 10. There was a guy, we'll call him Jack, who not only stole things, but also involved many other people in his crimes. One time, he planned to steal a large number of luxury cars. To do this, he had his accomplices call 911 and other emergency services from different places and countries, reporting car thefts taking place in multiple locations. He only used a few people each time, so the voices and locations varied. The police responded to each call until he actually committed the crime, at which point no one came. He was never caught. When the owners of the cars reported their thefts, the police didn't believe them. Jack was a genius in his criminal planning, managing to evade capture. Sounds like Jack was playing a game of 911, 911, what's your emergency? Oh, just my luxury car being stolen again. Meanwhile, the police were like, another car theft? Oh, it's just Jack pulling his usual tricks. Let's not even bother responding this time. Story 11. A French thief who had spent 10 years in prison became a comedian after he was released. One of his stories was about how he found a building, went in, chose a floor, and transformed the exit door into an extra apartment. He added an apartment number, fake lock, welcome rug, and other features. He then put an iPhone for sale. When the person came to buy it, he opened the door in a shower robe and said, "Give me 1 second, I'm just gonna count the money," and then he vanished down the exit stairs. Story 12. While working at a home improvement store when I was younger, I encountered a man who came in, went to the snowblowers, took one, and went to the return desk. He said he wanted to return it but had no receipt. They told him he needed a receipt. So he said, "Okay, I'll be back," and wheeled it off to his car through the front door. He apparently did this a few times. Some places even helped him load it back into his car. Story 13. Not a cop, but close to 20 years ago, a man on Australia's Gold Coast successfully robbed a bank in broad daylight. He had cased the bank for a while and discovered a pattern of the bank manager arriving about 30 minutes before anyone else each morning, where he would leave the front doors unlocked for staff to enter without a key or needing to wait for the manager. One morning, the crook dressed himself up for a busy day of office work and waited for the bank manager to arrive. As the manager was unlocking the doors, he made his move, entering the building and threatening the manager with a gun. He obtained all the information he needed to access the vault and then tied up the manager and locked him in his office. When the staff arrived, he told them that the manager had called in sick and that the regional office had sent him in to do the opening of the shop, and no one suspected anything. This bank had a small walk-in vault that normally only held around $30 to $50K on any given day, but he had timed his robbery for the morning after business banking day, when all the local small businesses would make their end-of-week deposits, and reportedly got a score of close to $250K. Once the vault was open, he pulled out his gun and invited all the staff to enter the vault and lock them in. By this stage, the bank was due to be open, so when he went to leave, there were a number of customers waiting to get inside to do their banking. He told them all that there had been an issue with the computers, and that the tech team had estimated it would take around 30 minutes to resolve the issue, and that they couldn't open it until then. He then got into his car and drove straight to the airport and flew to Hong Kong, disappearing without a trace. To my knowledge, the police never caught him and never managed to find the money. They knew you would have to leave most of it in Australia somewhere because you could only take 10K AUD in cash in any currency out of the country before customs pulls you into their interview rooms. So the assumption was that he had an accomplice here who would funnel the money to him slowly over time. Phew, looks like this crook knew how to make a withdrawal without needing an ATM card and PIN. Genius timing on hitting the bank the day after Small Business Banking Day. Talk about hitting the jackpot. I wonder if he's still living it up in Hong Kong, or if he's been caught by the long arm of the law. Either way, I'm sure he's still laughing all the way to the bank, or wherever he's hiding that $250K. Story 14. This was in the late 90s, early 2000s. A guy in my dorm came to school solely to deal. He took out student loans, registered for a bunch of 300-person freshman survey courses where he would never be missed, then literally never went to class. All he did was go to raves and concerts and keggers and sell party. After the first semester, he was suspended. He wrote the usual, "I was young and dumb and in over my head" sob story, and got put on probation for a semester. So he had a repeat of the fall. At the end of the year, he was kicked out and didn't care. He made something on the order of $150,000 in return for about $8,000 in student loans to cover a year of housing and tuition. So far as I know, he was never caught. It may have been a short-sighted maneuver in the long run, but in the short run, it seemed fairly genius to effectively use federal loans to start your business. Story 15. My favorite was the guy who stole a post office mailbox from the street, repainted it, and then placed it next to the night deposit box at a bank. He even hung an out-of-order sign on the deposit box. As a result, all the businesses came along and dropped off their deposits in the mailbox. Story 16. A guy I went to school with had been stealing from Walmart in a clever way. He would grab items such as video games, MP3 players, and beer and throw them in a trash can in the garden section. The workers never checked the contents of the trash, so he would wait, sometimes for as long as 5 hours, until they emptied the trash in the back dumpster. He would then hop in and retrieve his stolen items. On one occasion, he even took a cardboard box from a display inside, filled it with video games, a PS3, and extra controllers. He grabbed some tape and pens, drew all over the box, taped it up to make it look used, and tossed it into the trash. An hour later, he had a brand new PS3 and a stack of games. Stealing from Walmart like that takes some guts, but I gotta admit, the way he managed to grab all those items without getting caught is pretty impressive. I hope he gets caught before he tries to pull off another heist like that, because it's not right to take advantage of the workers like that. Please leave your story down below in the comments. I would absolutely love to make a video about them in the future. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, peace.